Ready for some serious high strangeness? Buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, a place that really needs no introduction, does it?
Not for our listeners. They know their stuff. But they've been asking for the real deal on this place, all the details. So we're going deep with Dr. J.E. Montgomery's Unveiling-Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, excellent choice. Really gets into it.
Trying to uncover what makes this place tick, you know?
It's a fascinating case study, isn't it? You've got one ranch that's become like this lightning rod for every type of paranormal claim you can think of. Makes you wonder, is it all just stories? Or is there something else going on beneath the surface?
Right. And the book doesn't shy away from those stories either. But it also digs into the history of the land, going way back, long before anyone even whispered the name Skinwalker Ranch.
Absolutely. Montgomery goes all the way back to the Ute Navajo people. They called the Uinta Basin home way before any settlers showed up.
Yeah, their connection to that land runs deep, especially the Ute tribe's history, right? As a whole other layer to this Skinwalker Ranch saga.
It does. A layer I think a lot of people don't often think about.
Yeah, I bet. It's like this undercurrent, right? You've got this clash of cultures, these ancient beliefs, and it all kind of feeds into the mystery. Does the book get into specifics about that?
Oh, it does, yeah. Particularly how forcing these tribes onto reservations really disrupted their whole way of life. It makes you think, could some of these unexplained events be connected to that turbulent history? Even the name Skinwalker Ranch itself.
Ooh, that's interesting.
It's an angle you just don't hear about that often.
No, you're right. It's like these echoes of the past might still be playing out today. And speaking of echoes, the book also talks about these chilling accounts from way back late 1800s, early 1900s, long before the modern Skinwalker Ranch stories. What kind of stories are we talking here?
Well, picture this. You're a settler, right, trying to make a living out in this harsh landscape. And you start seeing these massive wolf-like creatures, massive. And they're watching you from the tree line. Oh, and their eyes, they glow.
Okay, see, that's already nightmare fuel for me.
And it gets weirder. Some settlers claim these creatures were bulletproof, like you could shoot at them and it wouldn't do a thing.
Honey passed the silver. And the bigger gun. No, but seriously, bulletproof wolves. Montgomery's not messing around.
Nope. And it wasn't just the creatures either. Settlers described these earth-shaking booms seemingly coming from nowhere. Terrified their livestock.
It's like the land itself has a story to tell.
Montgomery does a great job of weaving these early accounts into the larger narrative, shows how this area has always been shrouded in strangeness.
Yeah, and it just keeps building, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And if you want to read those stories firsthand, you can find Unveiling Skinwalker Ranch on Amazon. Trust me, it's a wild ride.
It really is. Things ramp up even more when the book introduces us to the Gorman family. Now, that's a pseudonym used to protect the real family, the Shermans.
Gotcha. So the Gormans, they buy this ranch in the 1990s hoping for a nice, peaceful life. Which, spoiler alert, doesn't really work out for them.
Not even close. Montgomery describes them being essentially under siege from the moment they step foot on the property. And again, important to remember, these are presented as claims from the book, not necessarily proven facts.
Right, we're deep in the unexplained here. But even as claims, it's pretty chilling stuff. What kind of experiences do they have?
Well, imagine finding your cattle mutilated. But we're not talking about just any attack. The book describes these surgical-like incisions, organs removed with incredible precision. And get this, often, no blood.
Okay, whoa. Hard turn into horror movie territory. Were there any explanations, like predators, strange diseases, anything?
Montgomery says the authorities, they were stumped. No tracks, no signs of struggle, just these surgically altered carcasses. Can you imagine the feeling of dread hanging over that ranch?
Honestly, I'd probably pack my bags and leave the cattle mutilating to someone else. But the Gormans? They stuck it out.
They did, at least for a while. But the strange occurrences, they just escalated. They started seeing these glowing orbs all around the property, some small, some as big as basketballs.
This is where it gets really interesting. What were these orbs doing? Just floating around being creepy.
That's the thing. They weren't just floating. They were moving with purpose, almost like they were intelligent.
Oh, okay.
The book talks about these orbs following the Gormans, reacting to their movements. There's even an account of an orb seemingly playing hide and seek with one of their children.
You know, I've always been a bit skeptical about this whole orb thing, but that detail gives me chills.
Right. It goes way beyond just strange lights in the sky. This was something else entirely.
Something else entirely.
And those details, especially about the orbs, are really what thrust Skinwalker Ranch into the spotlight. It went from this remote ranch with just these whispers of strange things happening to attracting the attention of some really big names in research.
Because, let's be real, glowing orbs
Hmm.
playing hide and seek, that'll get the scientific community's attention. So who steps in to investigate?
Well, the ranch eventually ends up in the hands of Robert Bigelow,
Bigelow.
the aerospace mogul, yeah.
No way. Yeah. The guy who founded Bigelow Aerospace, the company that makes those inflatable space station modules. He bought Skinwalker Ranch.
He did. In 1996, he bought the entire ranch and brought in this team of scientists to form the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDSci for short,
Yes, he...
right? And they came armed with all the latest tech, thermal cameras, ground-penetrating radar, you name it. Their mission, get to the bottom of what was really going on at Skinwalker Ranch.
Talk about a dream job. Or maybe a nightmare, depending on what you find.
Oh, yeah.
Does the book get into the nitty-gritty of their investigation?
Oh, absolutely. Montgomery details how the NIDSci team meticulously documented every anomaly they encountered. They experienced it all firsthand. Strange lights, UFO sightings, even those unsettling cattle mutilations we talked about. But here's the kicker. The phenomena seem to affect the researchers themselves.
Okay, Nid, that's what I'm talking about. Tell me everything.
Many of the scientists started experiencing what they could only describe as psychological effects.
Like what?
Intense dread, paranoia, even disorientation.
Talk about a hostile work environment. It's almost as if the ranch itself was messing with them, you know? Like it knew they were there to uncover its secrets and decided to have a little fun. Did they ever figure out what was causing those effects?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Unfortunately, no easy answer. NIDSci eventually left the ranch, their findings inconclusive. But their research paved the way for future investigations and added another layer of intrigue to the Skinwalker Ranch puzzle.
It's like trying to hold on to smoke. You get a glimpse, a sense of something there, but it's always just out of reach. So if NIDSci couldn't crack the code, who did? Or is that what makes Skinwalker Ranch so fascinating that it remains an enigma?
It's definitely part of the allure. But NIDSci's research, as documented in Unveiling-Skinwalker Ranch, did uncover some compelling clues. One of the most intriguing was the presence of strange electromagnetic readings at the ranch.
Okay, let's unpack this. What kind of electromagnetic anomalies are we talking about?
We're talking sudden spikes in energy, equipment malfunctions, compasses spinning wildly out of control. It's as if the laws of physics themselves are being bent in this one specific location.
So it's not just spooky vibes and creepy stories. There's actual scientific data to back up the weirdness.
Exactly. And Montgomery digs into some of the possible explanations for these anomalies. Could it be something about the geology of the ranch itself? Underground caverns, strange mineral deposits. There's even speculation about the ranch being situated on some kind of energy vortex.
Energy vortex. Is there actual science behind that, or is that more of a New Age theory?
Well, it's a concept that's definitely popular in New Age circles, but there are some scientists who believe certain locations on Earth might have these concentrated areas of energy. Whether those energy fields can actually cause paranormal phenomena is still up for debate, but it's definitely intriguing.
Especially when you consider everything else that's been reported at Skinwalker Ranch. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire. But if we're talking about hard science, what about the more out there stuff? Does the book touch on things like interdimensional portals or government conspiracies?
It does. Unveiling Skinwalker Ranch tackles those head on. And one of the things I appreciate about this book is that it doesn't shy away from those theories. Montgomery presents them not as outlandish claims, but as possibilities, as avenues for further investigation.
Which is really what makes this whole topic so fascinating, right? It's like this collision of science and the supernatural, where even the most skeptical minds are forced to consider explanations they might have dismissed before.
Exactly. It challenges our perceptions of reality itself. And Unveiling Skinwalker Ranch doesn't shy away from those challenges. It delves into them head first.
Speaking of delving in, the book doesn't just stick to the events at Skinwalker Ranch itself, does it? It also touches on the wider world of UFO sightings and government investigations.
It does. And this is where things get really interesting. The book talks about how in the early 2000s, the Department of Defense had this program called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP for short.
ATIP, that name rings a bell. Didn't we hear about that a few years back?
We did. It was this shadowy government program tasked with investigating UFOs and other unexplained aerial phenomena. And guess what? ATIP contracted a company called Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, BAASS, to help with their investigation.
Hold on. Isn't that the same Bigelow who owns Skinwalker Ranch? You're telling me there's a government connection here?
It's quite a coincidence, wouldn't you say? While the government hasn't officially acknowledged any specific knowledge of Skinwalker Ranch, the fact that they were funding research into UFOs and that the research was being done by a company owned by the guy who owned the ranch. Well, you can draw your own conclusions.
Montgomery lays out all the pieces for us, that's for sure. It's like he's saying, here's the puzzle, what do you make of it?
Exactly. And he doesn't try to force-feed you any one explanation. He presents the evidence, the eyewitness accounts, the scientific data, the historical context, and encourages you to form your own opinion.
Which is exactly what a good deep dive should do. It's not about telling you what to think. It's about giving you the tools to think for yourself. It's about giving you the pieces, right? And letting you kind of see how they fit or if they fit. And with Skinwalker Ranch, it seems like there's always more pieces to be found. But here's what gets me. What about the people who experienced it firsthand? The researchers, the witnesses, the people who actually stepped foot on that land and felt something shift.
That's what makes this more than just spooky stories, right?
Yeah.
These accounts, they describe lasting psychological effects, like a real shift in how they see the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to hear about weird lights in the sky, but it's another thing entirely to feel like you're being watched, even manipulated, or even like understood by something, beyond human comprehension.
I can't even imagine. To have your sense of reality so completely challenged, it must do something to you. Does the book get into any specific accounts like that?
Oh, yeah. There's this one, it's chilling, about this seasoned researcher, right? He went to Skinwalker Ranch totally convinced it was all explainable. But after seeing all this bizarre stuff, things he just couldn't rationalize, he left the ranch deeply disturbed, questioning everything he thought he knew.
That's what I find so compelling about this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not just about UFOs or cattle mutilations or any one specific phenomenon. It's about how those experiences can completely change our understanding of the world and maybe even ourselves in the process,
Absolutely. And Unveiling Skinwalker Ranch, it really gets that. Montgomery doesn't just present the evidence, he explores the impact these events have had on our collective psyche, on our need to find meaning in all the unknown.
It's like this collision of science and the supernatural forces us to confront the limits of our own knowledge, It's humbling and exciting at the same time.
Totally. I think that's why this book has really resonated with so many people. It's more than just a book about Skinwalker Ranch. It's a journey into what makes us human. Our curiosity, our fears, our desire to make sense of a world that, let's face it, is often beyond our grasp.
It's about acknowledging that there are still mysteries out there, things that challenge everything we think we know. And maybe, just maybe, that's okay. Maybe that's what keeps us exploring, keeps us questioning, keeps us searching for more.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And if you're ready to go on your own exploration of Skinwalker Ranch, I highly recommend checking out Unveiling Skinwalker Ranch by Dr. J.E. Montgomery. You can find a copy on Amazon and really dig into all the details we discussed today.
It's a deep dive you won't soon forget, that's for sure. Until next time, keep exploring the unexplained.